There are plenty of ways to talk about how the environment in a game can tell a story, being the canvas for the narrative, but in a game, how can the environment itself be a character? In Prey, I would spend ages bumbling around the talos station only to get absolutely demolished by an angry stapler and various lobby decorations, but what I did come away from it with was an intense respect for how much the environment felt like it was out to get me personally. The game brought me in so close. I had a reason for doing the stupid things I was doing in the game because they were what I would do if I was there in real life, interacting with the station. And it always felt like the station was beefing with me. I felt real, ball-shrinking dread whenever I'd see a mimic become a chair out of the corner of my eye, and would genuinely get VR chat phantom pain whenever I failed a hacking section. But what got me most of the time was the horrible remains of the dead crew members scattered throughout the station, which always told their own small story, making the station feel like it was slowly creeping up on me throughout the entire game. I mean, even the noises of the station were so terrifying, I would actually play without sound at some points because it made the environment such an antagonist. Leaving the station to float in open space made the return journey feel like I was flying myself directly into the most horrifying eldritch boss fight in gaming history, because seeing Talos as a whole only proved to me that I couldn't escape its grasp even if I wanted to. I was so alone because the station itself felt like it was keeping things out of my reach on purpose, and allowing the mimics to reside within it out of spite for my existence. When it comes to the actual enemies in the game, it's so interesting from a game design perspective that they turn themselves into actual pieces of the environment, because that's what made me so afraid to approach things in general. Because not only were there monsters pretending to be parts of a terrifying place, but the place was essentially working in tandem with the monsters for the sole purpose of killing me. I could never really become a part of the station myself, so I never thought of the station as anything but my enemy in the narrative. I didn't have the luxury of covering myself in mud and becoming one with the jungle. Rather than the environment in Talos just telling me what to feel through simple visual clues, it provoked me and transformed how I acted in the game. Bioshock Infinite does something similar with Columbia, but where both worlds try to isolate their characters, their enemies, Columbia reacts in a very different way to Booker pushing back. Where Prey let me crawl into small spaces to let me find shortcuts through an objective, Columbia never lets Booker out of its sight. From the moment he steps out of the capsule, Columbia is letting him know that he shouldn't be there. Then, once Booker reveals himself, Columbia funnels him through it by allowing him freedom through the skyhooks and platforms. This isn't just the environment telling a story of how it feels about Booker, it is actively trying to move Booker towards his destiny and decides whether it wants to help him or not in certain situations. The amount of times I thought I was safe after using a skyhook to escape an encounter, only to look back to see a giant metal gorilla man hurtling towards me, was proof enough for me to think, oh, okay, so this place really does hate me. When I played Burial at Sea Infinite's DLC, Episode 1 seemed to really try to do something different with Rapture, so I guess mid-levels of success. In Episode 1, Elizabeth comes to Booker, who's a private investigator in Rapture, and hires him to help her find a girl named Sally. Booker being a playable character in this episode was such an odd experience, because we know what Elizabeth needs to do with Booker eventually, and we know what Booker would become if she doesn't. There's a strange tension woven between them throughout. And Elizabeth knows that she eventually needs to kill Booker to rid the multiverse of another Comstock, but still has trouble not treating him like her old friend. We're taken around a thriving Rapture, a really cool sight to see, and when things turn bad as fast as they do, you can feel Rapture's pain through its broken glass and pipes. While in the first game, there's more work done to make you get a sense of what the place was like pre-collapse. Actually seeing it unfold was like it was happening to a character you really liked, but couldn't help in any way. Elizabeth and Booker eventually find out Sally was near Fontaine's department store. It's around this point that we actually find out that this Booker is one that managed to get out of his baptismal judgment and came to Rapture to escape a really disturbing past. But Atlas throws a wrench in the whole operation by capturing Elizabeth and Booker and revealing that Sally is actually a little sister. Booker still manages to get killed in this universe, and now Elizabeth has a debt to Sally to save her, because really this is all her fault. Now, in episode 2, for the first time in the series, you actually get to play as Elizabeth. She's sitting in a cafe in a beautiful sunlit Paris, which feels so welcoming and warm, it really did feel too good to be true. Immediately, it was showing itself as hardly realistic at all, and just as doubt starts to creep in, and it manages to keep you there just long enough to get comfortable, it grabs you and drags you out when Elizabeth sees Sally. As Elizabeth runs through the streets, it reveals its true nature, becoming dark and haunting. Elizabeth wakes up after this at the feet of Atlas, who decides to kill Elizabeth, but not before a kind of Force Ghost style version of Booker gives her the right dialogue options so she can get out of there alive. They convince Atlas that she can get them out of the department store in return for Sally, and after searching around the rubble for a bit, Elizabeth finds her own body. Because she had returned to Rapture against the advice of the Latouche twins, Elizabeth has lost her ability to see alternate realities, and is now literally powerless. The Rapture in the DLC, of course, isn't entirely the same full, winding Rapture of the first game, but I really don't think it needed to be for this story. This Rapture manages to be even more enclosing and claustrophobic, often barely letting go in larger areas because of how Elizabeth needs to use vents to move around. It takes a really active part in the mood of the game by feeling like it's still trying to restrain itself, still holding back, and trying to be like it once was. When Elizabeth finds her body, Rapture seems to be cradling it, claiming the body as its own, and refusing to let go of this piece of its multiversal history. Even before Rapture collapses, there's an act being put on. Its personality is shown through how it treats its different classes, enforcing what it thinks about who belongs where. It feels like Rapture is following along with Elizabeth, because they both know what is going to happen to it, and there's nothing they can really do to stop it. These three places, Rapture, Columbia, and the Talos Station, are some of the richest examples of an environment feeling like a character in its own right, because of how they all seem to have a motive. It's not like they're just a backdrop, there to just tell a story about change, or that there was a catastrophe, but because they all interact with the player as any talking character would. They sympathize with certain people or creatures, and when you leave them, you don't just exit, you leave someone behind. Good games provide the audience with clear and effective motives, shown through their environment, so when they're not around, you miss them all the more.
You're not gonna like what I have to say next.
My name is Jeff.